So we have broken down the Deebo Samuel trade rumors in the past on this channel, but they are resurfacing and they have a little bit more legs now, with multiple reporters saying the Texans, among other teams, are becoming very interested in trading for Deebo. So I'll ask you at the top of the show, do you want to trade for Deebo Samuel if you are the Houston Texans? Give me a yes, give me a no. I'll be looking at your thoughts down in the comments section. Welcome into Texans Today. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and we are starting off with a report from Jordan Schultz that came in yesterday. He is absolutely putting Ian Rappaport in a body bag. He said, sources, the Commanders and Texans have had significant interest in trading for 49ers wide receiver Deebo Samuel, with talks progressing in recent days. Sources tell NFL on Fox. Other teams, including the Steelers and Broncos, have also checked in, but Houston and Washington are believed to be the most aggressive teams. And we've heard it in the past, the Texans have obvious ties to Deebo Samuel and the 49ers. He was allowed to seek a trade earlier in the offseason by the 49ers, and the Texans just keep on popping up as a team that is linked to Samuel and the 49ers. And the reason why it's gaining so much steam right now, the 49ers must make a decision before March 22nd. That's when his $15.4 million bonus hits. So coming up on the program today, I'm going to go through the pros and then the cons of trading for Deebo Samuel and why it's becoming more likely that the Texans make this move for Deebo as we get closer and closer to that deadline for the 49ers whenever his roster bonus hits. First, let's start with the pros. He already knows the system with the Houston Texans, and this is probably the main reason why he's been linked to Houston as often as he has been. We know the Kyle Shanahan tree goes in with Sean McVay. Who did the Texans have as their OC last year? Bobby Slowick. Their OC this year, Nick Caley, comes from that same West Coast system with the 49ers and the Los Angeles Rams. So obviously there's that strong connection already because he already knows kind of what his role in this offense would be. And it's going to be a similar role than what he played in San Francisco. His 2024 stats in 15 games played, he had 51 receptions, 670 yards, averaging 13.1 yards per reception. He also toted the rock quite a bit, 42 carries, 136 yards, which doesn't give you a great average there on yards per carry. And he hit the end zone 4 times. So obviously with his familiarity, it's an easy, like, oh yeah, a plug-and-play type of guy that you can trade for. And another reason why it's becoming more and more likely is the cost of it. Not only is, his contract not that bad right now, which we'll get into more of that later on in the show, but I also think the cost for trading for Deebo Samuel is not that high. Like I said, the entire NFL knows it's a ticking clock, and the 49ers are under it with that roster bonus hitting on March 22nd. So the closer we get to that and the closer that we all know that Deebo and the 49ers are going to eventually split, maybe I was told maybe a 5th rounder, but I was being a little cautious, more cautious, and I was saying the trade would be a 4th round pick for Deebo Samuel. This was my trade idea that I put together with our 49ers host, Chase Sr. He said, I would take a 4th round pick if I'm the 49ers for a guy in Deebo Samuel that if nobody trades for him, they're going to eventually cut. Now, the only reason I give up a 4th is because there are other teams that are interested. And also, the Deebo contract, if traded, is very team-friendly. He's only set to make around $2 million against the cap this season if you trade for him. He's set to be a free agent in 2026. And the only caveat that I will say, and I'll bring it up later in the show, he probably wants a new contract, but I wonder at what cost. The last reason why this makes a lot of sense and the pro of trading for Deebo is the Texans depth chart is depleted at the wide receiver spot, especially with Tank Dell's health up in the balance. Where does that leave this Texans wide receiver room? Because he's injured going into 2025. That means without any moves made, you have Nico Collins, Xavier Hutchinson, John Mechie, and Jared Wayne as your guys on the depth chart. Obviously, You have free agents Stefon Diggs and Robert Woods, but if you brought in Deebo, probably wouldn't re-sign Stefon Diggs. I think this team desperately needs some more talent at the wide receiver spot. Just a year ago, we were talking about the Texans having one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver rooms in the NFL, and it changed just like that with a couple of injuries, a couple season-ending injuries, and then Stefon Diggs obviously set to be a free agent this offseason. The Texans need more receiving weapons, and a guy like Deebo Samuel, even though we'll talk about, here in just a moment, he hasn't been that same Deebo that we knew in, 2021, 2022, when he was one of the best weapons in the entire NFL. You need competition and you need more depth. And at the least, if you're going to get a guy like Deebo Samuel in a trade, I think he brings in pretty good depth at a reasonable cost if you are the Houston Texans. Now, coming up, there are some cons to trading for Deebo Samuel. It isn't all just, roses and rosebuds with getting a guy like Deebo. I'll break down those cons to getting a guy in Deebo Samuel in just a moment. But if the Texans do trade for Deebo, I know where you can get a jersey. It's with our friends over at Fanatics. And if you use this link right here, chatsports.com/Texans jerseys, that'll send you straight to the Fanatics website, and that lets them know that we sent you over there. So if you need some new Texans gear, I know, the Texans were tweeting out this week, what's your favorite jersey combo? My personal favorite jersey combo, maybe an unpopular opinion, I like the all-navies. The Battle Reds are clean AF. Also, Derek Stingley Jr., probably going to be working on an extension, so a good jersey to get. If you're looking for a Texans jersey, can't go wrong with a C.J. Stroud, a Will Anderson, or a Derek Stingley Jr. jersey. Once again, that link is in the comment section in the description of today's video. So if you need a new Texans jersey, if you're trying to get one this offseason, go do it with our friends over at Fanatics and use this link so they know that we sent you over there. Now, let's get to the cons of trading for Deebo Samuel. Declining production. We talked about in 2021 and 2022, he was arguably a top 10, top 15 receiving threat in the National Football League. Not so much over the past 2 seasons. He's been a little bit injured, hasn't played more than 16 games in the past 3 seasons, and his production has gone down steadily. This past year, 13.1 yards per reception. Back in 2021, that number was at 18.2. So he's gotten a lot of work, and the production has gone down year over year over year. And also, you have to look at Deebo Samuel in this offense and how Kyle Shanahan's used him. He's put a lot of tread on those tires because not only has he been a receiver for the 49ers, he's also been a running back. I showed you that graphic earlier in the show. This past season, he had 42 carries as a running back, more than what a lot of, backup running backs in the NFL would get. So he's had a lot of wear and tear on his body as a wide receiver and a running back. He's a big, blocking wide receiver, and that puts a toll on you after doing it year after year after year. And has that toll kind of come up with Deebo Samuel, where father time is kind of knocking at that door? I hope not. The other part of this is, not to mince any words, but he just looks out of shape. You probably saw this photo circulating around during Super Bowl week. This was at Radio Row. Actually, a couple of the Chat Sports team were there, and they can confirm he did look a little fat. He was wearing the A.J. Brown jersey supporting his buddy there at Radio Row. But, this photo, it's not photoshopped. It's not anything, that's smoke and mirrors. Deebo Samuel right now at this point, it's obviously the offseason. He has all, summer to train and get ready and get his body right. But at this point in time, after having a down year, he does look like he's put on a couple of LBs. He, went back for that second scoop of mac and cheese this offseason. But we're going to need him to get in the best shape of his life if the Texans are trading for him. Because if the Texans trade for a guy like Deebo Samuel, he's going to have to be the second or third option on this team. And we don't need a, James Harden in his last year with the Rockets wearing the fat suit Deebo Samuel. We need him in the best shape of his life, Deebo Samuel. So that's something else that the Texans have to work out if they're going to be trading for Deebo. And the last thing is, does he want the bag? I mentioned earlier, you trade for a guy, it's only going to be $2 million against the cap. Yeah, sign me up. If that's all it was, if it was just, you get Deebo for $2 million this year, all good. I don't think it's as simple as that. We're looking at the highest paid wide receivers per year, and I don't think he's going to get close to anywhere near these numbers, but these numbers continue to go up. You have T. Higgins, who wants to get paid this offseason. You have Jamar Chase, who wants to get paid this offseason. Obviously, Deebo isn't on that caliber, isn't on that level right now, but seeing what these guys are making, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for Deebo Samuel to ask for $15 to $20 million on a yearly basis if he wants an extension with the Texans. And obviously, you can make that work. You could, move some stuff around. He also, like I said, has 1 year, $2 million. You tack on maybe 1 or 2 extra years at that, $15 to $20 million price range per year. You can definitely make it happen if you're the Houston Texans. I just wonder exactly how much he'll be asking in a contract extension, even if he does want one. Hopefully, maybe the Texans just run it back with the same Stefon Diggs scenario where they trade for Deebo Samuel and say, hey, at the end of the year, you'll be a free agent and you can try to cash in again if you have a really good season with us. It gets him motivated. It gives the Texans motivation to give him the ball, get him involved, and have this offense really working at all levels. Obviously, Stefon Diggs got injured this season, so you're definitely betting on yourself if you're Deebo Samuel. But at the end of the day, if he was to get cut and hit free agency, I don't know what he garners in free agency right now. Obviously, teams want him for his services, but at what cost? A lot of teams want to trade for him at that $2 million price tag. But if you're telling me you're getting that same guy at a $20 million a year price tag, I think the amount of teams that are lining up for his services go down drastically. So there's a couple pros, there's some cons, but at the end of the day, I think the pros might outweigh the cons for the Houston Texans and what they need this offseason. A cheap veteran wide receiver option that can come in immediately and knows the system. I think the Texans are looking at that as a very attractive option going into this offseason. And, if the trade happens, I'm going to be obviously breaking it down. I'm somewhere in the middle of this, right? Like, I think a trade would make sense and I would like the move, but what is the corresponding move? Do you extend him or do you let him hit free agency after only one season? Only time will tell. Regardless of what happens, though, we'll break it down here on the channel. Another reason why you got to go down and hit that subscribe button.